It was another quiet night at the office. No phone calls, no messages, nothing but junk mail and overdue bills to keep me company. Seems nobody wants to hire a real private dick anymore, a professional like me. A guy who does
You
the
want to
detective
turn
work
off
nobody
that
else wants to
radio
do. A
feed.
guy who wears hats and walks around in a black and white world. I began contemplating more profitable line of work, like politics.
All right, folks. Welcome here to the Friday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN. I'm Joe Mangiacotti, and we're broadcasting here on AM 830 WCRN. Me from an undisclosed location today, flying the board back at HQ, and you can join the conversation very easily at 508-871-7000. It works the same way, folks. No problem there. 508-871-7000. That's how you join the conversation. Hey, we have a text line up and running as well. That's 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388, or email me at textjoeintheradio@gmail.com. If you're emailing the show, you do that with the show email, joemshow@gmail.com. The text Joe on the radio, we only look at that when we're on the air. So, and you guys use the Messenger app on the Facebook page. Fine. Perfect way to do that. Just to note, we are live streaming on my social media platforms, Facebook and Twitter at Joe Mangi Show, YouTube channel, LinkedIn, and even Twitch TV. Now, why are we on Twitch TV? I have no idea, but we are, and we're under Joe M Show at Twitch TV. So several ways to listen to the show and watch the show for that matter. A lot to talk about. Last night, of course, was the kickoff, the January 6th hearings, and we can talk about that. And what say you? 508-871-7000. Plenty to talk about there. Before we get into it, let's jump to the phones. Joyce is calling. Hey, Joyce, good afternoon. What's on your mind? Hi. Yeah. Yeah. What was your take? Not much. Oh, you watched the coverage of it. They were commenting, right? They didn't air it like the other networks aired it, but Fox just kind of commented as it went through. Yeah. Okay. All right, Joyce, let's look at this for a second because this is a very long time, about 18 months after the incident goes on. President Trump hasn't been in office for a year and a half, and you've got to look at something like this, and you got to wonder what's the real objective here, given the fact that every congressional hearing must in fact have a purpose, a legitimate reason for having the hearing. So I think the end result here is they're trying to figure out how they can get a felony charge leveled against Donald Trump because they want to take him out of the possibility of running again for the office of president. And if he has that, they can do that. Now, when we look at what went on here, right away, as far as I'm concerned, the hearing, and people listening to me, don't confuse the incident with what I'm talking about. And I'm talking about the hearing here. This hearing, as far as I'm concerned, was illegitimate the moment Nancy Pelosi told the the minority party, the Republicans, who they can have on the committee. They wanted to put Jordan and Banks forward, and she kicked them off, and she put a couple rhinos in there. Now, that's never been done before. That's not done. The party, even the minority party, they have the option and they have the right to put whatever member they want to represent the party on the board, on that committee. And for the first time, she edited who was able to be on. So right there, you're telling you this. Then they bring in this Goldstein guy. Right now, he's the guy who at Nightline and ABC and killed the Epstein story, killed any story connected to Bill Clinton and Epstein, killed all those. I don't know if you remember when we got that anchor on the hot mic and she was talking about Veritas, Project Veritas was able to get that and put it out there. So they bring in a guy. Now, why does a congressional hearing need to bring in, as slimy as the guy might be, a professional TV producer whose job it is to spin stories and tell stories for entertainment? The whole thing just reeks of it's very Orwellian. And you're turning on the TV and you're being fed a diet of lies, half-truths, and truth or lie by omission. Well, that's good for you and that's good for me. But Joyce, you got to remember that there were just hundreds of millions of people who never, ever tune on or go on the internet for the alternative sources or tune on Fox.
Who they're destroying this country.
Okay. Yeah. I got it. I got it, Joyce. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Joyce, thank you for the call very much. I got to hold you there because we're going to move along. Yes, actually, if we have another down in the GDP, we will officially be in a recession. But most of us already know what we're in. We feel it. Now, I was going to get to this, and we're going to talk about Joe Biden's falling poll numbers and his appearance on late night TV and all of that in a moment. But I want to go back to the hearing for a moment. And so, as I set this up, folks, we have a situation where the committee itself was handpicked, and you had Nancy Pelosi dictating to the minority party, the Republicans, who's allowed to sit on the committee. Then they have a professional storyteller from TV come in, and I think that's pathetic, and it should be embarrassing for them, because a hearing should be about debate, facts, and what is provable and what actually happened. And they lie through omission. And what I mean by that is, and you can find it if you look hard enough, and actually if you go to the Fox and the Newsmaxes of the world, because they've saved them in their archives and they can pull them out occasionally, of President Trump giving his speech and clearly saying, after this, you're going to peacefully march to the Capitol and express peacefully your constitutional rights. He was very clear about that. They won't play this. They don't play that in the committee. Now, let me be clear about this. And again, you can join the conversation at 508-871-7000. What say you? If for those out of the thousands of people that were there, you should not be guilty of anything because you're at the Capitol. And what I'm concerned about, I'm going to point out, and this is what I'm talking about when I say Orwellian, because we're watching something that we used to think was only reserved for third world countries or banana republics. That the government decided what was true and fed you what you wanted or what they want you to believe. And then any steps to question it, you're squashed. And the dual justice system that we see, we have over 800 people arrested out of the January 6th, 80 either served time or serving time now. And we look at the summer of 2020 and the BLM and Antifa riots, and we had people of those riots. And yes, I'll agree that some of the people who showed up there showed up to peacefully protest. I think it's a stretch to argue that at 10 o'clock at night you're conducting a peaceful protest. I don't think that really passed the sniff test here, folks. But they showed up with weapons, or they showed up and there'd be a U-Haul already parked there with cans of whatever, peas or something, cans there, and frozen water bottles, urine, bleach, crowbars, and just sticks of some type for them to be gathered once they show up. Nobody's talking, nobody's investigating this. Those groups, or parts of those groups, right, attempted to burn down courthouses, attempted to burn police cruisers with police sitting in them, executed police. Now, if we want to start talking about trying to overthrow government or insurrection, trying to burn a courthouse is just as bad as doing damage to the Capitol, as far as I'm concerned. The courthouse is the symbolic structure for the judicial system. The Capitol is for the legislative, right? So why are there very different handling of this? Majority of those people were either cases dropped or seriously reduced in charges. And then the editing of the film, they're not showing the films that make you ask the questions. Like, why are there Capitol police officers, because there is video of this, moving barricades and opening the doors and talking to the people and pointing them into directions? And then you have people walking around like they're dumbfounded that they're there. But folks, we're going to have to take the first break here in the Friday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN. So remember, you can join the conversation at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. And text us at 617-297-8388. Stick with us. We'll be back on the other side as we continue the Friday edition. And what say you on this particular January 6th? Not the incident, but what's your opinion on the hearing and what's going on with this hearing, and whether or not you believe it at all, whether or not this is a legit hearing, or it's already lost its credibility with the selective membership. Joe Mangiacotti, stick with us.
About Petah Tikva, such as
I don't understand that.
it's available now at the hand.
Providing quality coffee shows that a company cares.
I don't know. All right, folks. Welcome back. The second segment of the Friday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. That's 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. I still, right now, folks, we're focused on this hearing, not the January 6th incident. Now, if you have an opinion about that, that's fine. But what's your take on the hearing that kicked off last night? They do it in prime time, thinking that they're going to get the maximum coverage, the maximum people watching it. They think it's going to change everything. You're going to remember that the Democratic Party, we have 30 some odd incumbents who won't seek re-election or seeking a different office because they feel they'll lose their seat and they rather do it on their own terms. The tidal wave, as they say, Jesse Waters doesn't like to talk about it. He says that jinxes it. But no matter what, and this morning, folks, you woke up, and regardless of what went on last night on TV at the Capitol, gas again went up this morning. It's at a record high. Joe Biden's polls are the lowest in the history of poll taking for your president of the United States, along with his VP. Inflation is hyperinflation. Your money is worth so much less than it was the day he took office. These are things that can't be ignored. And regardless of how many times this administration or Joe Biden himself tells you that things are great, and it's not that you see how bad it is and you feel it, it's that their messaging is bad, that they just haven't figured out how to tell you that it's pretty good. And you should stop moaning about it and just be lucky with what you have. So when did this switch from this country being the country of the people and politicians being temporarily employed by us to the government being and acting as if they're sovereigns, and that anything we get and any right that we have is because they've allowed it? This is very upside down, and everything we see going on is very Orwellian. And we're going to talk about a gubernatorial candidate getting arrested yesterday morning at 9:30 for being at the Capitol a year and a half ago. Well, he's considered to be the leading candidate. Things like this. So we see the arrest of your opponents. We saw that happen earlier, right? Peter Navarro, because he was a Trump supporter. They are literally imprisoning their political opponents. And where are we on this? If at minimum, I hope that you show your outrage at this on November 8th at the polls. 508-871-7000. Let me go to the phones. Joe has been waiting. Hey, Joe, good afternoon, sir. How are you? And what's on your mind? Yes, I'm going to get to that. Talk about, that's nowhere in the news, Joe. This is a kid who went to kill a sitting Supreme Court justice. But by who? Because okay, but I don't think this would be something like the Pelosi Schumer would want, because they wouldn't want any distractions from last night's hearing. And not that it was, right? Not that it was, because the media is basically considering the gravity of this. What that kid was doing to me is actually worse, because there were nobody, and despite what they're trying to tell you on January 6th, I think they're trying to make you believe that 5 police officers were killed that day. Not one police officer was killed that day. Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's all scripted. Well, Joe, they got a TV guy to come in and produce this. So this isn't a hearing. This is reality TV. This is reality TV, and they would mock Donald Trump for having the #1 show on TV, and they're doing the exact same thing, except the stakes here are a lot higher because there are people still in solitary confinement and being deprived of their constitutional rights, violations of search and seizure, held without cause, speedy trial. I mean, you just start racking this stuff up. Why are we not? Well, I'll tell you why we're not marching on the Capitol again, because your butt would be in a jail cell too. They're imprisoning political opponents, Joe. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Well, we saw this because from the moment that Trump walked down the escalator, everything changed on him because he was the X factor. He was the wild card they weren't counting on. Before that, he was considered a New York liberal, right? And everybody was clamoring to talk to him, take a picture with him, get into business with him. And the moment he came down, they're like, well, wait a minute. No, that can't happen. And they didn't believe, right? They really did not believe he was ever going to be able to get elected. And that it was Hillary's turn to happen, right? It was Hillary's turn to happen. And this screwed all their plans up. It turned off the timeline. And then he gets there and he's unbeholding, Joe. He's not beholding to a special interest group. Nobody got him there. It was small donations. You see what I'm saying? And he's not a politician. He's never been elected to anything. So this is what we see happen. If they can't control you, and if you do say you're a congressman or senator and you get in there as a freshman and you're going to change the world, Joe, what's the first thing they do is they sit you down and they tell you how things are really going to happen, don't they? No. And that's a sad thing. Yeah. Especially in the FBI, Joe, and because not the whole FBI, and the rank and file are probably very patriotic, and I know some FBI agents, and they're all there for the right reason. But when we find a couple of these rotten apples in the high, powerful positions in the FBI, we have a serious problem. But I got to hold you there, Joe, because we've got phone calls waited up. Thanks, Joe. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. This is the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. You can join me every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 1 o'clock, Sunday mornings at 6 a.m. That's a great talk block. I kick off at 6 a.m. Mike Wade comes in at 7, Peter Blute at 9, Jerry Doherty jumps in there at 9:30 with Peter Blute for a little while, takes you to noon. Good way to listen to a Sunday morning talk block. Let's go, John. John, thank you. You've been waiting patiently. What say you? I'm well. Frustrated, but well. Yeah. Yeah. Could you imagine if a group went outside of the home of Justice Sotomayor? I mean, the National Guard would be there, wouldn't it? It would be on all the news channels 24/7. Yeah. Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. Yep. Okay, so now we have an egg farm at 1 million eggs a day. We had the Abbott baby formula, 40% of the market, and nobody says boo about that. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it, Jo- John, if you control the health care and you control the food, you control the people. And of course, the benefit, or excuse me, the bonus that they always try to do is disarm the population. And we're constantly under attack. Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No, that's right. All those minerals that are taken. I've said this. You can't make that many cars. But John, I got to hold you there because we're against the clock and the break here. Thank you for your call. It's always fantastic. Absolutely. All right. Hey, folks, stick with us. We're going to take a quick break here in the Friday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show, AM 830 WCRN. Don't forget, you can join the conversation at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Stick with us, and we'll be back on the other side. Okay. All right, folks. Welcome back to the second half of the Friday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN, and you can, of course, text us on our text line at 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388, or email textjoeintheradio@gmail.com. It appears on the same screen. What say you? Not so much about the January 6th incident a year and a half ago. I'm talking about what they kicked off last night. This turd of a production where they spent a year and a half putting this together. They brought in professional TV people to produce this show. They were promising us this bombshell, and quite frankly, I didn't sit and watch the whole thing, but watched some of it, watched the coverage of it, and there doesn't seem to be any new information. Everything that they put out there was stuff that we already knew, some stuff that we knew to be inaccurate or not truthful, like the number of officers who died in the incident. No Capitol Police died. One man had a stroke a couple days later, and eventually the autopsy came out, and it clearly stated he died of natural causes and not connected to January 6th whatsoever. The only person who died in that incident was a Trump supporter who happened to be a United States Air Force veteran, Ashley Babbitt, who was shot by a Capitol Police officer with a record of recklessness, yet we know nothing about this guy, really. Think about that. And what the coverage was for all the police shootings that involved killing somebody. This was an unarmed person that he shot through a window, which meant he didn't know what his target was. He randomly shot and hit this woman, got her in the neck, killed her on the scene. This is a tragedy, and nobody is talking about that. That's the only person who died on January 6th, executed by a police officer. 508-871-7000. Mark has been waiting patiently. Thank you, Mark. What say you? Sorry, did we lose Mark? Oh, there we are. Yep, got you now. Yep, got you now. Yeah. Yep, absolutely. It does seem a little odd. Yeah, 1 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yep. Good question. I don't know. I haven't seen that in any of the news stories. Don't know. Yeah, and I mean, remember how much they focused on Kyle Rittenhouse and and they actually charged him. No. I'm making a point. I'm making a point here, Mark, is that they actually charged him for transporting a gun over state line when he didn't even actually do it. They had to throw that charge out. But this is a situation that what a 21-year-old kid, 26-year-old kid, has this gun magically appears, and nobody has asked the question. None of the reports that I've read says it was bought here or he traveled across state lines. That hasn't come out, and that's a great catch. The other catch, and I was going to bring this up, and I'm glad you already did. 1 o'clock in the morning, you walk by federal marshals who are on protective detail, and you see a kid dressed like that carrying duffel bags and knapsacks. 1 o'clock in the morning, that kid shouldn't have got within 50 to 100 feet of the driveway without being told to halt and questioned. 1 o'clock in the morning. No. Oh, 100%. Absolutely. That's red flag number one. Red flag number one. They don't even question the guy. And also, whose gun is it? Who is it registered to? Was it his gun? Yeah. Yep. No. No. And the other thing is, by the way, folks, if you don't know some of the details of this story, he got out of a taxi. He took a taxi to Kavanaugh's house. So a taxi pulls up. This kid gets out at 1 o'clock in the morning, strolls by the marshals, all dressed in black, carrying duffel bags and knapsacks and so forth. And they do nothing. Nothing. And if you're on protective detail and your protectee happens to be a sitting Supreme Court justice, you should know what you're doing, right? This should not be the bottom of the barrel as far as the personnel go. These should be some decent marshals there doing their job. And you're there at 1 o'clock in the morning. You shouldn't see anything but raccoons walking around. And a taxi shows up. The kid gets out. And the fact that he gets to walk by the house is strange enough. They would never allow that. Because you show up in a taxi, if you took a taxi and you belong there, the taxi's going to pull up to your house. This doesn't look right. And for not one of these marshals to think this doesn't look right is questionable. Why? And the fact that he wanted to pass by the protectee's house, the marshal sort of stopped him before he got to the property line and said, "Can we help you, sir? Where are you headed? Where are you coming from? Would you mind if we look in the pack in your case?" Because he doesn't live there, but they didn't even engage in a conversation. If they had engaged in a conversation, they would have ascertained that he doesn't live on the street. He has no reason for being there at 1 o'clock in the morning. And you could argue this, given the heightened threat situation and the fact that he's at that property, it could be enough to detain him and search him. But he walks by, and somehow he decides, instead of carrying out my mission, I'm going to call 911 and tell them I'm thinking suicidal and possibly doing harm to somebody else. Now, this kid, Roski, all dressed in black, again, he arrived at a taxi. So right there, the marshal should have seen the taxi come down the road, a quiet, dead road at 1 o'clock in the morning, just them out there. Doesn't go to a home or pull in a driveway or pull up in front of a home where the kid gets out and walks into the house. I could see the marshals not disturbing him. Somebody just came back from a trip. They took a taxi from the airport. They're coming home. I could see not doing that. But walking by your protectee's house. And when the police show up, they find that this kid had a Glock 17 pistol, plus ammunition, a knife, zip ties, pepper spray, duct tape, and some other items that he was going to use to break into the house and kill him. Now, this is less than a week after a judge was murdered in his basement, tied to a chair and tortured. And why is Pelosi pushing this justice protection bill down the road, kicking the can down the road? But I'm telling you, this goes back to Schumer and the fact that he stood out there telling justices by name that they've unleashed it and they're going to pay a price. Exactly what price? They're in there for life, so you can't elect them out. Now that is instigation. And I think he should be investigated and charged for his rhetoric. But he's not being touched. And why is that? All right, folks, we're going to take the third and final break for the Friday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN. Don't forget, you can join the conversation at 508-871-7000, 508-871-7000. Stick with us. Be back on the other side. All right, folks, welcome back for the fourth and final segment of the Friday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here at AM at 30 WCRN. Don't forget, we're live streaming on the TuneIn app. You can tell Alexa to play WCRN. She'll do it, no questions asked. And I'm live streaming on my social media platforms. And my tag or handle there is Joe Mangi Show, M-A-N-G-I, Joe Mangi Show. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. What say you? You're welcome to put your opinion in here on both the January 6th incident, the January 6th hearings that kicked off last night. We've got a couple of weeks of this that are going to go on. And what do you think of it? I'm sorry, folks. It lost credibility to me the moment Nancy Pelosi kicked off the Republicans that the GOP wanted to put on Banks and Jordan, and simply because she did not want tough questions asked. And you know that Jordan and Banks are going to ask very logical, common sense questions that they don't need. It doesn't fit with the story, with the Orwellian method in which they're trying to propagandize everything here. Okay, so what say you on that? Now, we have a couple other things I just want to touch on. One is Biden's polls. It's like a inverted. As gas goes up, his poll numbers go down. You'd think there might be a correlation there. Crazy, huh? Overall approval, 33%. It's the worst than any president. And he seriously is losing support in key demographics. Young adults, only 22% approval rating. Hispanics, 24%. And losing Hispanics and black votes, that has always been the bread and butter voting bloc of the Democratic Party. Now, a survey conducted just a few days ago, June 3rd through the 6th, found that 22% of Americans ages 18 to 34 approved of Biden's performance. That's the lowest rating of any age group. And also, by the way, the 24% Hispanic voters, but 49% of black voters said they approve of Biden's work. That is seriously down. The attitude of the Democratic Party to the black community has always dumbfounded and amazed me. They continually victimize or treat them as victims, in that they just need them. We got to do this for you. You're incapable of being your own persons. Right? That's Blackix. Right? So Candace Owens started this movement, and she's going around waking up a lot of people in her community. And they're constantly reaching back into history. They did the left, right? About this, remember the statues all had to come down, and those 3 school committee members who wanted to, take the names, including from Washington to Lincoln, off of schools because they were racist or had slaves. Yet they totally want to ignore the history of the Democratic Party, the party of the KKK, the party that always voted against any civil rights legislation and always voted for, because back in the post-Civil War, it was all Democrats in the legislature who voted and passed these Jim Crow laws, and it was Democratic sheriffs that enforced them. That part of the history, though, they have no consequences for that. The Democratic Party doesn't have to answer for any of that, but everybody else has to answer for whatever organization or ethnicity you belong to. Of course, you weren't born or you didn't live in those days, but still you're supposed to be held responsible for it. But nobody looks at that. Now, although Biden was allegedly here elected with the most votes in U.S. history, this support for him, and I question whether it was always exaggerated and inflated, but it's cratered. 6-7 months into the office, it really started to get chaotic. Now, I brought up the other day, and maybe you got it, or you caught it, or you didn't, or you missed this in the news, but there is a Blackix going on in this administration. 21 people of color are leaving the Biden administration. And the reason for that, this is them. I'm not guessing here. I'm not telling you what it is. I'm telling you what they're saying is that their only purpose of being there was to be black, that they're not listened to. They have no real power. And if they work on something and they, I guess for lack of a better way, they pitch it or they try to invoke some kind of change, they're kind of told, well, that's nice. Good for you. Now go back to your office and be black. And that's not why they're there. That for them, that's not why they're there. They thought that they were actually being hired for more than checking a box or for a political comment about having the Biden administration tries to brag about having an all-female press corps. That's fine. Are they all qualified, though? So 21 people of color are saying, this isn't why I'm not going to be here. And it actually has become insulting to realize that the only reason you have the job is because of the box that you check. And I don't blame them. I do not blame them for being disgusted with that. And I would leave too. But he has lost key demographics. And we talk about this as if he was going to even be on the ballot in 2024. Do you think he will be? What say you? All right, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Let's go to the phones. We have another Mark, Dad? Hey, Mark, what say you? What's on your mind? Oh, Ken. All right. Yeah, that's fine. All right, Ken. What's on your mind, Ken? You look marvelous. Fire in West. No, tell me about it quickly. Is this the pro-life firebomb? Because there was a pro-life office that got firebombed. All right, that one. Okay, yes. Oh yeah, well, so I didn't get to this. I'm not going to have time, but I did want to talk about Biden's appearance on Jimmy Kimmel the other night, and he used the word mini revolution. Here we have a sitting president going on a lame late night show and using the word revolution. Well, first of all, Joe, you're late to the party if you don't think there's already a revolution going on. Again, as usual, you're not paying attention and you don't know what's going on. But he said about if that decision, that doodle that I referred to it because it was just some writing on a piece of paper back in February. It's not a decision. It hasn't been voted on or either concurred or dissent from the other justices. It was just a draft that a justice was messing around with. Somebody got a hold of it, leaked it, and he said if that actually comes down, there's going to be a mini revolution. But you see that they have to gin up the base and they have to gin everybody up because and he said it, that you have to vote all of these pro-lifers and Republicans out of office. Yet, if you look at the decision, Ken, it doesn't undo abortion. It just says we're throwing it back to the states, where many justices over the years have believed that's where it should have been kept. And it doesn't outlaw abortion. It just says each state will decide what their abortion laws are. That's all. But they're trying to twist this and gin everybody up and make it an issue because they know the shellacking that's coming in November. And that's what that's about. And for him to use that we're going to have a mini revolution again. Could you imagine if Trump ever said anything remotely like that? It would be another impeachment within days, right? Do I still have you, Ken? No, okay. We're running against the clock, so say again. Roseanne Boylan, that's familiar. Quickly refresh me. Well, tell us before we're out of time. Okay. Yeah, I remember that name, but I didn't remember the details. Oh, like I said, the only people that got hurt on that. I'm sorry, say again. All right. Well, we'll stay away from the rumors, but the only people that got hurt were actually the Trump supporters. They're the only people that got killed and hurt in this. Ken, we're against the clock. Thank you for the call. I appreciate it. All right, folks, we're going to be wrapping up the Friday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN. Join me Sunday morning at 6 a.m. Mike Wade won't be in this week, so I'll be covering Mike through 9 o'clock on Sunday morning. He'll be back the following week. He's just away for this particular Sunday, and of course Peter Blute at 9 o'clock. And also check out my website and social media for posts and conversation that I'll have on Facebook and Twitter from time to time. Hey, folks, enjoy the rest of this fantastic day. Joe out.